The truth no one wants to admit about why high achievers don't burn out suddenly. They actually burn out through predictable cycles where discipline, drive, and responsibility actually become risk factors. And success is often masks deterioration. This is because the cycle continues until the body forces a stop. Mine did. My body started to collapse when I couldn't walk down the hall at work because my knee was so inflamed. I had to use the wall to walk. That's because my system had to collapse for me to know I really had to do something different. You see, high achievers can get stuck in this burnout loop and not even realize it because oftentimes they're overcommitted. But what's really happening is their system is getting overloaded. So supervisors will see them as highly committed people to be relied on, but it's underneath destroying their internal system. In a state of stress, it's often looked as performance is tightening. So if performance is tightening, stress goes up. And it shouldn't be that way. Actually, performance might decline, right? It'll appear to increase for a short time and then it declines. So it's a little deceptive. What looks like exhaustion is really coming from increased effort, right? Where you have to put more effort in because you're exhausted. There might be a reduced capacity, meaning you just don't have any more space or energy, but it can look like control. Because when you collapse, we think we just need brief recovery and then we repeat the cycle, but we've not truly recovered from that collapse. And so it's important to recognize that high performers can't rest their way out of burnout. And the reason for that is high achievers and high performers tend to view their identity as connected to productivity, which means I'm a good person if I'm producing more. I'm worth something if I'm producing more. We need to not tie identity to productivity. And for high achievers, when they rest, they tend to feel guilty. Guilty that they're not doing something. Guilty that they have this long chore list or to-do list and they're just not doing it. They're resting. And we need to change how we view that. You should not feel guilty for resting because your body and your mind need that rest. It's important to how you function. High achievers also might view recovery in a point where it feels unsafe, right? It doesn't feel like you can recover because there's so much going on around you. And we need that sense of safety to recover and function from a calm state. You might replace regulation with control, meaning the more you try and hold on to control of everything around you, you might perceive that you're doing better, but in reality, you're not regulating well. And we can't regulate by holding on control so much tighter. We have to release that. The other reason rest doesn't work is because burnout deepens despite your effort. So if you're not truly implementing multiple things that help you recover and prevent burnout, it's just going to get worse. So let's talk about what this cycle does to your nervous system and your body. Because when you're burnt out, you are stuck in this chronic sympathetic dominance, which means you're not getting into your parasympathetic nervous system where your body can truly recover and stay in a calm state. If you're in a sympathetic state where your nervous system is constantly activated, this is becoming your dominant state and does take an effect on your body, right? It leads to inflammation and hormonal disruptions because your hormones are like, I have to just get through the stressful state, which is let me put out cortisol, let me put out adrenaline. And so your other hormones get disrupted. And then your body's going to store all that excess cortisol, which can cause inflammation. It does cause sleep to degrade, which means you don't sleep as well. You don't get into that restorative deep sleep. And maybe you're not sleeping your optimal number of hours. You're only sleeping 3 or 4 hours. That's an issue, right? That's where your nervous system and your brain and your physiology, your body can't recover. I hear a lot of times, Deidre, I just feel emotionally numb. Okay, let's talk about what's going on there, right? If you're feeling emotionally numb, your nervous system has been activated for too long. It's like those nerve ends almost get fried, right? You just can't feel anything anymore. And if your nervous system is constantly in this overload from that long-term stress, your cognitive functions do decline. And if you're wondering what that looks like, go back and listen to video 1. I go into detail on that. But we don't want cognitive functions to decline. But I will tell you, it can get repaired. It can come back. So how do we break the cycle? Specifically, the physical path of chronic stress or burnout. We have to first focus on that regulation, right? Nervous system regulation, emotional regulation, before we can optimize our health. So movement, yes, does help the nervous system reset. And that might look a little different for everybody, but it is an important component to that recovery. We also need to focus on breathing and body-based recovery. Those also help our nervous systems. And I will often talk a lot about deep breathing. And the reason is when we're constantly on this heightened state because our nervous system is evaluating everything as if it's a threat, most people will either hold their breath or they breathe very, very shallow, which is not getting to the rest of your system. Your entire body needs those deeper diaphragmatic breaths to recover. And that is part of that nervous system regulation. But again, it's a component, right? And so we have to create this plan. What's going to help your body recover? Nervous system level and physical body. And in order to build that capacity that was lost, you have to start with that physiological safety. So if you're not feeling safe, we got to work on that first. So what helps you feel safe? Is it something going on in your environment around you? Is there something within yourself you can do for yourself to help yourself feel safe? Because safety is important to that repair. And then we'll talk about sustainable rhythms for restoration, right? Because what you do to repair and recover isn't just about that repair and recovery process. It's about how do I implement this long term? How does this become part of my life as habits so that I don't get to that place again, right? Because that's the important part. It's about being able to have that longevity in your health and in your ability to function in life and enjoy life. You need that longevity. And so we build in tools for restoration and recovery, and then we look at what maintains long term that we keep. And so there are missing links when we talk about physical recovery because burnout does live in the body. And again, most people think it's emotional and mental, but it is physical too. And so we have to deal with the physical body as well as the mind and the emotions because that's where it lives, in the body. So talking alone doesn't recalibrate the nervous system. It is helpful because we often make sense of things through conversation. We also need to get into implementing things that help the nervous system, which isn't just talking. I used to go for walks with adolescent clients I worked with all the time and some adults who wanted to. We would walk and talk, and it's super helpful because we get that movement to help our nervous system and our body process stuff. And then we have that conversation that helps at the cognitive level. But physical regulation can help restore emotional and cognitive capacity because, again, they're all intertwined, right? So if we're talking about that physical regulation, we're talking about what in the therapy world we call it more of this bottom up regulation. The physical body and the nervous system can help. Once that's regulating, our emotional and cognitive capacities can come back online. When we talk, we hit the bottom or the top down, which also helps us recover. So I really like to kind of sandwich those two together and hit both aspects at one time. Movement can signal safety to the brain, meaning if I am moving and releasing stuff, and I'm also kind of just scanning the environment I'm around because we naturally do that when we're moving, it helps the brain register, nope, we're safe. This is a good place to be. We do have to focus on nutrition because when our bodies have dysregulated because of burnout, it's depleted its mineral and nutrients. It no longer has a reserve and it's not using them effectively. And so to heal the physical body, we need those minerals and nutrients. Those do help restore physical health. Because remember, recovery does become about embodiment. So it's about that physical body. It's not just the intellectual. If a lot of this is resonating and you're like, I don't know where to start, that's okay. Book a consultation. If you feel like you've tried everything and nothing works, or you're just not sure where to start, this is an opportunity to get personal guidance, maybe do a little self-reflection, and identify a path that is proven to work, but that's individualized for you. So the link is in the description. Because remember, insight into how your physical body resets because of burnout, but you can recover, and sometimes that takes a little guidance. And so let's chat. It doesn't cost anything. I just want to see you succeed. Because remember, burnout is not a failure, it is a pattern. These patterns can be interrupted, and it starts with your body. Because sustainable performance starts in your nervous system, not in your calendar.